So what did you do differently in that environment? Like you say, you had to get it selling.
Yeah.
You're one of 35,000 SKUs.
Yeah.
So what did you do to get it selling in that
Yeah,
environment?
and the challenging thing too was people typically know to look for a mustard in the mustard aisle, in the condiment aisle, but because we were a local item, we couldn't get in the planogram, so we had to be listed in the deli, which was fine, but it was a challenge because customers didn't know where to look for us. So, we had people going to the condiment aisle and saying, oh, I couldn't find you, and like, oh, I'm actually in the deli. So it was a huge educational process between us, our distributors, and our customers, really communicating that to them. So it was a huge social media push, it was a demo push, it was a marketing push, and also at the time we were still going to farmers markets and shows. So it was a huge communication process of saying, hey, you can now find us in Sobeys and Safeway, but look for us in the deli. It was always like a non-negotiable. You had to mention that at the end, or otherwise people would go and they wouldn't find you and they'd be upset and they would message you and it'd just be a whole thing. So it was a huge educational process for us to communicate our customers to look for us in the deli, and then also for the deli, section to know Smak Dab is there. So there's a big piece there. So for us, it was a constant, and still to this day, we have to always educate our customers. If you're going to the stores out in BC and Alberta, we're in the deli, we're not in the mustard aisle. So it was a big part of the process. It was like, I feel like I should have had it tattooed on my arm, like, look for us in the deli, in the Sobeys and Safeway stores, because we were just saying it so much. And now I know people know where to look for us most of the time. But yeah, like, it was just when we were in farmers markets, and the reason why we wanted to stay in farmers markets and show was to communicate to people. You can find us in the Sobeys and Safeway, and then, all these other great local stores as well, so that in the winter when we weren't doing the shows, people knew where to find their Smak Dab and they knew where to get it year round. So, and eventually, COVID hit, which was kind of the benchmark of when we stopped doing the markets. For obvious reasons, they weren't able to resume. But even when the markets came ramped up again, we decided to take a step back from the markets. And we were a little bit nervous because we were like, oh, it's loss of income. You're not interacting with those customers. But we were surprised how it didn't really affect us because we put in so much diligent work ahead of time, just hammering into our customers. This is where you can find us. They had the cards at home, a list of our retailers. They found it on our website, on our social media. We communicated, we showed stores, we did features on our stores, so people knew you can get Smak Dab at these places. So it is still a constant part of our strategy to promote our stores, to support our stores as much as we can, even if demos aren't as beneficial a way to get people trying your product or exposure to your product. We just hammer home our stores. And in the deli. Yeah.
And do you get tired of that message?
Oh, totally, yeah. But you can't. But we get tired of it, but we just find new ways to revamp the message. So, it sounds funny, but to be specific, but reels are super popular on social media. So my girl Eden that works with me very closely, I say, okay, go into stores, get some shots of it in the deli section. Talk about, building your charcuterie board, then looking up and grabbing your jar of Smak Dab. Continue that message in creative ways so people don't forget about us in stores, because we do a lot online as well. But we want people to put us together with deli, cheese, charcuterie, and cooking, and grabbing their jar of mustard. So the message, we get tired of saying it, but we've just found different ways of relaying it. So if that makes any sense. But
and if we were talking to some small producers or medium-sized producers and processors, would you tell them you just got to stick with the message?
Yeah, consistency is key. That's the thing, people need to get exposed to a brand up to 7 times before they want to buy it. So I think consistency is key in your messaging, and especially when you want your products to move off the grocery shelf, the consistency is key. You need to remind them. And also just consistency on all marketing channels is important, so that, sometimes if they don't know you're in a store, they'll be shopping and they'll say, oh, there's that mustard I heard about, or my friend was telling me about, I came across on social media, I'm gonna grab one, and then there's that process starting. So I think consistency is really important, and that's the problem I see, is that small businesses are wearing too many hats, that the marketing piece tends to get forgotten because they're putting their dollars into other places, and I get that, but that marketing piece, that consistency and building trust and all the things involved with that are just super important. And I think that it's just really easy to forget, but consistency and building trust are key. Yeah.
So have you dialed back the amount of money you invest in sales and marketing?
No, we've ramped it up. Yeah, every year when we grow our business, we grow our marketing budget, and it's significant. our marketing budget is big. We invest in good people and we invest in good marketing that we think for our business. So that might be from photo shoots, that might be a video budget, that might be ads on Facebook, Instagram. And we have a very talented, my girl Eden is very talented and very passionate. So I tip my hat to her. She does it very well. And we work together. It's a community. It's a very team exercise, but it's so important. I definitely think that I hear a lot of businesses try and scale back their marketing budget, but unfortunately you really can't in this climate. I think more than ever, it's important to really, like I said, stay consistent and be really relentless in getting your message across and just target, because ultimately when you get your message across that's authentic, you're gonna cultivate that community that you want to grow your brand, and there are people that are gonna write your product on their grocery list and go buy it. And it's, I give the pyramid analogy. You want to start with that micro market when you're first starting in the farmers markets and finding 50 to 100 people that would miss you when you're gone. You want to start with those people and, hone them, develop them, nurture them as like your family. And then from there, they're going to talk about your product and they're going to recommend you. And then your base is going to grow until you have a pyramid of a really sustainable, really strong, sturdy business. And ultimately, that's my goal for every business that gets started, is to grow that base where they can grow and they can flourish and they can make money, which is ultimately what everyone wants to do and what everyone needs to do. And so I think that it's all about consistency and building that pyramid.
And we talked about sort of the sales and marketing budget, and there's always the tendency to focus a lot on the consumer side, but I think as you've grown Smak Dab, you don't lose sight of the customer part of it, so you have to do both, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like talking about the customers, the store,
the retailers.
Yeah, so I think that and it's always hard to work with those people because their stores are harder to speak to than the customers. So I think it's all about just working with them and understanding their needs and, seeing how you can support them in a way, and then being creative. So say, for example, whenever we have a promotion with Sobeys or Safeway that runs in the Western provinces, we put our heads together and we develop content and how we can help support them and then help support our consumers in the end. And so you have to always keep them in mind. It is hard though when you're working with bigger retailers like Sobeys and Safeway and Calgary Co-ops and Fresh Street and Urban Fare. It's so hard because you do forget about the little guys. And I'm torn because you don't want to forget about them because they're the ones that got you going, and the DeLucas are the ones that and their shop is how we really got going. So you don't want to forget about them, but also the Sobeys and the Safeways and the bigger guys are the ones that pay your bills, They're the ones that move the volume. So you have to, I think it's hard to not, you just can't forget about them. So what our strategy has been for in the next months is doing some local pieces on some local stores in maybe BC, in Alberta, in Manitoba, talking about them because a lot of them have a neat story too. And again, you have to filter it through your brand, and it makes sense for our brand and being very authentic and believing in home cooking. So a lot of these stores are very wonderful, like high quality stores that bring in amazing products, import some amazing goods from Italy. And you want to focus them and shine light on them too, but you have to balance that with the big guys too. So it's a constant teeter-totter of not forgetting where you came from, but also supporting your big customers.
And so you're looking at telling the story of some of the smaller retailers to your online community.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people love hearing that too. Because a lot of people do still shop at those smaller mom and pop grocery stores. So yeah, it's just all about that local feel, but obviously still staying true to who you are.
So we've now, as we're talking, it's obvious that Smak Dab has expanded across, conquered the mustard category in Western Canada.
I wish. Hopefully, yeah. Working on it.
So how did you do that? I mean, you grew from distributing the mustard yourself in Winnipeg, and then you went to DeLucas to expand that net. But now British Columbia, Alberta. So how did you make that happen?
Well, I think that I'm pretty sure you helped me with this when we first looked at expanding into distribution in the West. I remember you and I working together, and we looked at my pitch, and I remember you and I diving into what makes us different. And I remember, again, it's that why. You know why you're different, but it's hard to communicate it. So I think ultimately what helped us is we knew we were in a very crowded category. The condiment category is there's a lot of mustards out there, and they're very traditional. So I remember you saying to me, well, you're not traditional, so don't try and be traditional. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true. So I think that we always approach this as there's a huge overcrowded market of traditional brands that are out there. French's is not traditional, but they're a huge company. And, you know, My Mustard, they're traditional. The Grey Poupon, they're super traditional. But people don't always want a traditional, like, Dijon factory-made mustard. They want something non-traditional, something that's kind of pushing the boundaries of what a condiment or a mustard could be. Something that has beer in it, something that has horseradish and curry, something that's just, like, delicious and just kind of out of the box. So we've really leaned into that, and we had to lean into it because otherwise we wouldn't stand apart. So we've really leaned into that premium non-traditional brand is really where we positioned ourselves on that axis. And so that's kind of our quarter and our kind of our realm, and we've really lived in that, and we've really leaned into it. So, you know, we're premium, and so for that reason we've really cornered the market of home cooks. You know, we're not going to be for everyone. The people that don't love cooking, they're just not for us. We want people to grab a jar of mustard, go home and make a cedar plank salmon like I know you do, or make a recipe that they found online or they saw on a reel, or a really zhuzhed up grilled cheese sandwich. Those are the people that are our people. And I think that we've had no choice but to really lean into that. And I think it's when people try and be too economical, too outside of their scope, that they lose sight of their purpose and their brand, that people are confused. So I think that the big challenge for us is we've had to really just stay true to who we are and really trust that. And I think that, well, I know that that's how we've grown into the markets in BC, because we've had differentiated ourselves out there and in Alberta as well. And yeah, you just have to stay true to that and just stay in your lane of being who you are. We're not traditional, but we are premium, and that's who we are. So we're different, and we've had customers that are looking for that. And so that's who we talk to.
So when you were looking for a distributor, you helped them understand how different you are.
Yeah.
You help them understand like who your target market is.
Exactly. Yeah. And when those conversations started, I mean, and it goes back to kind of the retail situation, and, you know, we did some research on the category too. I remember you and I did this. We looked at the mustard category, and I talked to some other people in the industry, and the mustard category, especially the traditional brands, are very stagnant. They're just kind of, they're there, you know, they haven't really come out with anything innovative. And so our take was, we're kind of an innovative mustard that's doing some cool things that you're not seeing these big guys do. And so that was kind of our take too, was we want to grow the category. And ultimately we have, and which is really cool, that we have grown the category, and we have people buying mustard that never buy mustard, which is really cool. And I think it's a tip of the hat to you know, the marketing team that we've worked with Eden, and just like a collaborative group work with myself, and how we've said, okay, we can't be traditional and we can't be like the rest. So we're gonna target ourselves to people that want to cook good food and that maybe don't like mustard, that like it now because we're different and we're innovative. So when we went to present to our distributors, that was definitely a big part of it, that we're not traditional, but we're going to grow the category, and ultimately we have. Yeah. Again, we're not a huge company, like we haven't grown it to the level of some of those big guys, those traditional guys, but I think that we're working our way there. We're trying our best, and we're doing the best we can in our space in a premium market with using high quality ingredients.
Well, I think when you say grow the category, that gets people's head to turn, because it doesn't always happen, right? There's a lot of switching that happens, and trading dollars back and forth.
Definitely. And like we've talked about before, if somebody was to buy a little yellow container of yellow mustard, you know, the profits in the store are going to be lower than if they buy a jar of Smak Dab. And so that's been a big pitch of ours over the years too. And especially when we see good sales growth, we like to say, hey, look what we've done. We're growing your category. And again, it's an ongoing process. It never ends. We work on it every year and every quarter and every day. Our strategy is to get those numbers going up and up. So, and in this environment of grocery store and just inflation, I know it's harder for everyone to buy a premium mustard. I get that. I am all there. Like, I know our family, our budget is different because we have a young kid at home. So I'm very aware of that. I'm not naive to it. So I think it's all about just finding ways of giving your customers value and building their trust that they still want to be your customer. Yeah.
So I think it's a great point for brands that are positioned in that premium segment now, with a lot of food inflation happening, and people are looking at pricing maybe differently than they did 2 years ago. What would you say to brands that are positioned in that premium segment of the category? I think that people instantly think that they're at a huge disadvantage, which is sort of true, but it's not, because I think it allows you to be really specific about who your customer is. And I think that
the big thing, and again, I know you hear this too, everyone wants to be for everyone, but we're not for everyone. We're for a specific group of people that have specific needs and wants. And I think the important thing is if you're a premium brand, you just need to really hone in on who that group is and just relentlessly speak to them and ignore the noise of the rest. If somebody comes up to you and says, oh, it's too much to spend for a product, then they're not your customer. Ignore them and move on, respectfully, of course. But yeah, like you just have to be really true to yourself and say, I'm gonna just focus on giving the best value to this core group of people. Because I think that being a premium product, don't get me wrong, it can be a bit of a barrier, but it's also an advantage in the way that you have a clientele that can spend more money on your product and want to, they just need a reason to. So you need to build their trust, you need to prove your loyalty to them, and just give them value and really just bring them in and nurture them as your community.
So really have to give them that reason to buy. More important now than ever.
100%. More than ever, especially with inflation and the cost of groceries, you need to give your customers more reason now than ever to put your name on, like your company on their shopping list. Like I'm talking recipes, I'm talking free stuff to them, free value that's gonna, say, oh, I need to get that stuff in my shopping cart. I mean, even though this product is on sale, I need to go home with this because I saw this recipe. And it's also just, again, staying true to your brand, to staying true to who you are, not bending just because you feel like you need to warp to what's going on. And yeah, more than ever, and that's why I say our marketing budget has not decreased. It's ramped up, if anything, because our need and we need to provide value and build trust more than ever. Yeah.
And do you change the message at all? Like, were you talking about beef tenderloin 2 years ago, and now you're talking about maybe a cross rib or something?
Definitely. I think that you definitely need to read the room. I think that, there is a time and place for special occasions when you're buying the pork tender or the beef tenderloin or the prime rib for Christmas and stuff. But I'm not necessarily recommending that, all year round, because I think you need to read the room. And I think that, yeah, some people want to eat prime rib year round, but not everyone should or can, So I think that, yeah, you need to be choosy and you need to be respectful of your audience still. So yeah, I definitely think that. And also, with the vegan, vegetarian rise still, projecting, we are very cautious of that too, and not missing that segment of our customers too that like vegetarian meals, that appreciate eating meatless once a week. So we like to, and again, we like it too. So we try and, we're following what's going on in the industry. We try and keep our ear to the ground on what's going on. So yeah, our messaging maybe has changed. I think in the beginning, we were very focused on just having our photos look super like Bon Appetit worthy. And I think that was our vibe then, but we've kind of reined that in a bit of more like premium luxury at home, so making a grilled cheese with some Smak Dab on it, but and like something they can have for lunch on their lunch break. So we've changed our messaging that way. So, but we're having fun with it. People like to see that you're having fun with your food. So we just try and listen to what's going on.
Okay. And so how did you, all of a sudden you're now in BC and Alberta. You found the distributor, which is an important piece in the puzzle. You can't do it yourself. So you found a company to work with to get it to the store.
Yeah.
So how did you introduce Smak Dab into those markets?
Well, it was our distributor that was the big push. So what we did is when we knew we wanted to get into those markets, we worked really closely with the reps. And we worked really closely with them to make sure that they really understood our, kind of our values and our pitch and how they could, pitch it to stores ultimately. When you work with distributors, especially our bigger distributors in BC and Alberta, they don't really want you with them. They don't really want the company to come with them. They're independent, they're on their own, but they're also very good at their jobs. So ultimately, the more they sell, the more money they make. So it's very advantageous for them to do the best job possible. So they were very open to us working with them and collaborating with them and making sure that they could present the product in the best way possible. So it was kind of a team effort that way. And then ultimately, we have actually a demo team out there that does some demos out there. Because, I feel like you lose that home base advantage when it's not your province.
All of a sudden, you're not local anymore.
Exactly. Because, here we were in markets here, we had that local advantage, but we don't have any, we don't live there. So we kind of had a demo team we worked with, and we did a lot of work with them, training a little bit about, the products and the benefits and all that stuff, the features. And so they do a good job of that. They don't do as good as a job, obviously, if I was there personally, but they do a pretty good job. So, and again, that's good exposure, but ultimately we do a lot of social media, a lot of ads, and that kind of exposure out there too. But it definitely takes more work when you're not there. So I know that BC is a great market. It's definitely our target market. It's just taken a bit to get going because you are just kind of a product out there. You don't have that, connection like as you might have in Manitoba. So it's taken a bit more work. We've gone to a few kind of markets out there previously to get people trying our products and getting them tasting it and telling them, it's in the Thrifty Foods and the Safeway. So that was really good at the time too. We did that right before COVID hit, so we obviously haven't been back. But yeah, that was great too, just to get people trying our products, and telling them where they can find it locally. So that was great too. Kind of the same approach as what we do in Manitoba. We haven't done that in Alberta yet. But and I think that it's all about that relationship you have with the sales reps, the distributors, and it's hard though because sometimes you really want to be there, but you can't always be there. You have to really trust a company to be an extension of you. So you have to be pretty relentless in that communication and really communicating with them. Do you need anything from me? Can I help you in any way? And it's a bit of trust. So I think it's all about finding the right relationship with the distributors. You have to find the right one because there's a distributor, we've worked with distributors in the past that we aren't working with anymore because it just has not gone well. And you just need to find the right fit. You need to find the right rep that sees the value in your company and, that likes you, that wants to represent you and wants to see you succeed. So it's a bit of that relationship too that you need to nurture. So it's a lot.
I always say like finding a distributor is like finding a spouse.
It is. Yeah.
And you maybe the first one is not always the best one.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that
the first date anyway.
Well, that's the thing, and like we had a distributor in one of the Western provinces that they just were not communicating our values, and they just weren't communicating us very well, and so we had to move on from them. But the one we are with now is so like it was really cool. They were really thrilled to have us. They were like honored that we would want to work with them. That was really nice. And we were like, this is cool that you were like so excited to build our brand. And obviously it's advantageous for everyone, but they were really pumped to have us and they were proud to list us on their website. And that is really cool. And that's the relationship you want to have. And again, that takes time. It might take a few years to find the right one, but when you have the right one, you have to work really hard to make sure that they're happy and that you're happy and the store is happy. So it's like very much a team effort. Yeah. So
when you had the distributor that wasn't working great, how did you sort of come to that conclusion and we started working with them pretty much right before COVID. So unfortunately I wasn't able to travel out there. I wasn't able to really help them in that way I wanted to. So it was a lot of just like virtual and just a lot of trust. And I figured out I knew about 6 months in that, this was not going well. And so unfortunately, I just carried it on for a while. And then eventually I was like, this has to stop because we were getting, Sobeys stores contacting us because they hadn't seen reps in the stores for weeks. And so that's when I knew that something was very wrong with staffing, with just business was not happening there. So I knew very quickly that I needed to sever ties. And luckily, due to the wonderful relationship I have with our BC distributor, one of the key account managers said, hey, I have a company, another distributor that we're actually very close with because they're a wonderful distributor. They work really well. They're very professional. They said, I have a great company that I think would love to carry you. So it was from there, they reached out and they were really pumped. So it happened really wonderfully. And I was really happy with how things very smoothly transitioned and how they were just thrilled to have us. So that set the tone for a very great relationship, which has been going really well. Okay. Yeah. And when you go into a new market like BC, how do you measure success? Like, what's success look like? It's hard because, I think that how we've been measuring success is we just look at our year-over-year growth. And there definitely has been some challenges in some years where we've flatlined a bit, where we've been a bit concerned. But, I think it's just, you want to see a little bit growth every year, and you want to see growth in the same stores. You want to see growth in the banner. You want, the banners to be happy, so it's communicating with them too. But I think that overall you want to just make sure the distributor's happy with the growth and you're happy with the growth. And I think it's just a communication thing. I often touch base with the key account managers and say, hey, how are things going? Any feedback? Anything I should be aware of? And for the most part, there's not, which is good. I don't have any, I've gotten a few things that I need to correct, but it's all about that communication and making sure they're happy and the distributor's happy. And
ultimately the store's happy.
So really, success has to be measured with sales, right?
I think so. At the store level, it kind of does. That's kind of how we've been measuring, because ultimately you want to see your company flourish and continue to sell more units per week. And yeah, there's been years where we haven't seen growth, and that. But you know what? You can't lose sleep. Well, you do lose sleep over it. You lose sleep over it, but you say, okay, this is a good sign that we need to do things differently or do things better, and it's given us a kick in the pants to move forward. But yeah.
So if you were talking to a medium-sized processor, would you say, you need to set sales targets, you need to hold yourself accountable to that?
Yeah, I think it's important to monitor. We usually do quarterly, just kind of looking at quarterly sales, comparing them to the year before, comparing them by banner, by store, by distributor. And then it's good to look at that and say, oh, okay, what can we do differently? Or maybe we're not supporting them as much as we could. Maybe we should be chatting with them. Maybe there's something they're hearing on the streets they're not communicating with us because they don't want to hurt our feelings. I don't know. It's important to have those conversations. And yeah, it can hurt sometimes when you see some things happening, but I mean, it's how you get better, and you have to kind of get on it early and then correct it. But yeah, things are tough right now in retail. Like grocery is challenging right now for a lot of businesses. So I think it's normal to feel a little bit of a push and feel a little bit of the stress of it. But there's always room for things you can improve upon, and there's always things that you can do to nudge you forward and give more value to your customers or find more of your customers. Maybe there's different tactics you can do. So it's a constant growing experience.
Yep. And are you looking at like the total market too? Because when we went through the pandemic, we had food service really declined, retail sales bumped way up. Now that's shifted right back again.
Yeah.
So are you, seeing some of that at retail, or are you still seeing growth?
We're seeing growth bounce back into grocery. There was a couple years where we saw things slow down significantly, which I was expecting. And then now I think we're starting to get that momentum again, which is great to see. And then I'll admit there was a year where I was on my mat leave where I took a back seat a little bit more than maybe I should have, but I think that's human nature. And I think that I let things I kind of coasted more than I should. But you know what? That's okay. And we're back and we're getting momentum again in the markets that we want to grow and more. But we've really branched off into the gift market, which has been really interesting for us. We had a feeling the grocery would get a little bit rocky at some point, and it makes sense for our brand and for our product to be diversified a bit into gift, because we already organically had some stores across Canada that carried us, and so we kind of are working with a rep agency now that targets more the specialty gift market, and it's been wonderful. It's been a very good diversification, and I like to recommend companies that can diversify to do that. So that's been good for us too. So yeah, grocery is growing for sure, but we were in this gift market now too that's flourishing, and that's really cool. And then also we still do a little bit of food service too, which is ramping up also. So, and that's actually a market that we're thinking of growing a little bit too. So I think diversification is healthy, because when COVID hits, food service was basically zero. And so if we were really heavily into that, we would have been hurting a lot more. So I think it doesn't hurt to diversify, and also just, for revenue streams is really great too.
Right. Yep. Okay. So, you mentioned mat leave and stuff, so you can deal with distributors and all these things, but how do you balance all this stuff? I mean, it's a constant. I don't want to say a battle, but it's hard. Like I have a 2-year-old at home, and I want to spend time with him because you want to have a life and you want to enjoy. I do believe that you want to savor those moments, and I never want to look back and say, oh, I worked too much, because I unfortunately didn't have a mat leave. My husband took paternity leave, and he kind of stepped into that really motherly role while I was still kind of working. And I don't regret that, because I think that I was able to, because my husband was very involved, I was able to really, be a mother, then also do my business, because I love my business. But I think that, that my son's older, he's in daycare a bit, but I still do have those days with him where I'm just focused on him. And I think that is a balance. I like it, though. I feel like I'm very fulfilled on the business level. I don't feel like I'm missing out. I don't feel like I'm taking a back seat on what my potential is, but I still feel like I'm living my role of wanting to be a mom and doing that. So I think right now it's a balance. I'm very fortunate in that I have, help with family and childcare, but it's hard. It's hard. There are days where, you're exhausted and you're, getting ready for
a big, business pitch, but your kid's sick, and there's things like that. Or I remember one time I had to take Henrik with me somewhere, and it was just like I don't know, you do things like that, but people understand.
Yeah, I think the world is, people want real.
Yeah, totally. So there's been a lot of instances where I've had Zoom calls. I'm like, hey, well, this is happening. You're on my lap. And I'm on the Zoom call. I'm like, hey, guys, Henrik's here with us. And they're like, hey, Henrik. And people get it, and they're understanding, and they know that, like, you're trying to just do your best. And I think that it's just a constant, you just have to try your best. I don't know. I don't think a balance, I know my life is not balanced, but I try my best because I want to have it all. And I think that some days are good, some days are bad. Some weeks you feel like you're a rock star, some weeks you feel like you're a failure, and you just do your best. But it's fulfilling, and I love it.